I love going to the board game shop without knowing anything about a game that I want to pick up that day, just looking through the boxes, going through the shelves, trying to suss out what a thing is by the art on the front of it. And sometimes that comes out with a disaster, and sometimes that comes up with a really cool game. You don't even know what it's going to be. This isn't the game that you're going to pick up though. Monster Empire is the most scary, intimidating box because I have no idea what they were doing. It's got all these weird, fashion design labels around the outside edges where it says Cerebus or Skeleton. The middle has Gothic font, Monster Empire. What is this box? What is this game? Man, don't even look at the back of it because it's going to confuse me more. Jon, what have you brought home?
I brought this home from Japan maybe 6 months ago, and I had the exact same question for that entire time. I took a look through the rulebook once, couldn't really work out what the basis of this game was, and then down the track I was like, you know what, we're going to play this. And what we ended up playing was Two Truths and a Lie, but with all these moving parts that do nothing but create a really fascinating platform for creativity to make a lot of fun between your group.
Jon, I loathe to admit, but I think we're about to sit here and talk about Two Truths and a Lie in a lot of depth. That isn't necessarily warranted, but I'm also going to say we're going to sit here and say that it's pretty good.
Let's just break it down here and let me run you through exactly how it works. So you're going to have a board. This board has 6 locations on it, which will be covered by various different monsters. It's going to be the objective of the currently active player to allude to one of those monsters and encourage some, but not all, of the players to follow them on a journey that will see them hopefully defeat the monster. If they do that, they get some tokens, collect one of each of the 6 different type of tokens, and you win. It's a really kind of overly complex system for scoring what is a very simple kind of verbal game. You're going to say a couple of things about a sea serpent or a couple of things about a salamander that may or may not be true, and by leading people around the board, you begin to build this understanding of certain people's ideas, and that's actually where the fun of this game is.
See, most people will play this game and they'll start by being quite dull, and honestly that's how it was for us as well. We played for about 10 minutes of going around the table and people just saying, "Ooh, yeah, it looks scary, ooh, it could beat me in a fight," and those are fun, but they're not funny. Then, once you've said things a few times, people don't want to repeat themselves, right? So they start delving into the back of their minds, trying to bring out obscure things to say that they think someone at that table is going to get, but no one else is, right?
Look, we don't have to put too fine a point on it, but at some point, someone is going to go, yeah, this creature is a little bit horny. And it's just going to work for everybody, at least in our experience, because it is a subjective assessment of a creature, and people are going to look at them and go, what are you thinking?
And so everyone's going to place down a token, right? So the first player is going to place down next to the sea serpent, because I guess you could say that's sexier than the rest of the things at the table, if you really needed to justify it, but you're trying to think what the other person's thinking. And so then you're making a value judgment on what they think. They're looking at you being like, why did you pick the sea serpent? The next person picks the zombie.
It's just, it's a mess, right? The part of the game where you are performing the mechanics and winning, that is a whole separate thing to the joy and fun that you actually find within this game, which is just judging people for their subjective assessments of fantasy monsters. It's such a specific premise.
And it's very, very funny, but you have to be familiar with the monsters, but you can't be intimately familiar, right? You can't know them too well, because else you could just rattle off facts forever and the game won't ever get to that fun point. You just have to kind of be aware of them.
You could, yeah. It's best if you have players who are also willing to try and participate in a little bit of that fun, I think. If you've got players that are going to try and take this game seriously, it's just going to fall down. And this is where I think the designers of this particular game, Freaky Design, have a bit of a conflict with what actually makes this game turn over.
It's a social engine, not unlike Snake Oil or Spyfall. But the difference is that those games give you a way to perform, they give you a character, they give you a reason, they give you a setting. This game does none of that. This game has no interest in helping you engage on why it's funny. It literally goes, hey, you, figure it out. It's about you, let's get personal. And that's confronting. It is, but it's also funny.
The entire thing is comedy by chaos.
Yes.
And that is beautiful about it, but it is so antithetical to what it appears to have been designed for.
And this is such a lavish design. That's what's so confusing, right? This game, Two Truths and a Lie, what it fundamentally is normally played in a situation where everyone's just sitting around in a circle, talking to each other. You don't have a box, you don't have board games. This box is huge. These components are beautifully drawn. There is a castle that is in the box just so one player can put their token in it in the middle and say they are the person taking a turn instead of having a turn token.
But it's pointless because they're the only person at the table talking. Everybody already knows it's them. There is a 26-page rule book that has about 2 pages of rules and then a bunch of fluff, including all kinds of descriptions about the areas on the map which you are specifically, according to the rules of the game, specifically not allowed to talk about.
It brings out all these large pieces, this lavish box, this ridiculous production. None of this is telling you how to engage on this game in the way that we enjoyed it. It's telling you to play it as a serious game.
But this all means that when you do get there, when you do find out where it's interesting, you have gone on such a journey to get there that you probably have some pretty good material for stories.
This is, to me, the office of board games, right? Like, it's that awkward, weird comedy where you're exploring the parts of people that genuinely is not that interesting, but you don't get to see it that often. I don't think there's another board game I've ever played that lets you go into the part of people's minds where they're just trying to beat that tension to say something. They want to get past the clock. They have to speak, so they're going to say it. And they just take it out, and they're trying to not repeat themselves, so it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And that's the thing, this game did build up constantly. It got funnier and funnier. I don't know, like the whole fact that the end of the game doesn't matter, the point system is garbage. Like, this game exists only to do that thing, and it doesn't feel like they understood that making it. But that just makes it even more interesting because I just want to see what the rest of it's for.
And it's more fascinating because this format is simple enough that you could almost universally apply it to anything.
Dude, I would buy the hell out of a Disney version of this game. Although, the thing is, right, is that the fun of this game did come from saying all these weird, obscene things because we're not all that intimately familiar with these characters. And I have to wonder, would this game have worked better with those characters that we know, or that there's more of a person too, right? Instead of the vague idea of, hey, this is a zombie.
I don't know that it would, which puts this in a really weird place. It is, on one hand, completely inaccessible. You really need to have a working knowledge of fantasy creatures. You need to have acquired this game from Japan or eBay. You need to have 7 other people, ideally, who also know a fair bit about fantasy creatures. And then you need to be like, hey guys, we're going to play a game. It's a party game. So, like, we don't really get really serious here. It's such a specific set of things. Yeah. But that makes the stories that we had to tell about it fascinating. When we told other people about this game who might not necessarily have been interested, they were like, oh, what's that? I want to play that. Or we, ourselves, wanted to take this out and play it with new people.
But don't go out and buy this game, necessarily, right? Like, this game is awesome. I love this game. I don't love it because it's a good game, necessarily. I love it because I'm fascinated by it. And I really do want to pull this out all the time. Your mileage may vary, right? You have to be really interested in this for all the weird obscurities of it, not just for the mechanics of the game, to justify putting down what is actually a pretty sizable chunk of money, considering that it is a game that children play when they're talking in a circle.
Yeah. It is a game that you need to be interested in. Beyond just this game, you want to be interested in different approaches that people are taking to design to want to have this thing. Or maybe you just really love the lavish production and want to play Fantasy Two Truths and a Lie with your table. But you really have to have those specific needs. Otherwise, there are other social games that can provide that support that can help you be really funny and creative that we would way more quickly recommend.
If you do play this, let us know. If you don't, honestly, just let us know what you think you'd say. Think of some obscure question. I just need to know. Thank you for watching.
Bye!